In 1974, an encoded radio message was beamed into the stars with clues about the human race and knowledge of our technological advancement. And more than 20 years later, a crop circle appeared in a field in the UK that appeared to be a response to this signal. But was it just another crop circle hoax? Or was it something more? Hey guys, JDR Exospace here. So in order to answer this question, we have to go back in time a little bit to 1961 and discuss something known as the Order of the Dolphin. The Order of the Dolphin was this group of famous scientists at the time who gathered at the Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia to discuss how they were going to find evidence of intelligent life. Now when I say secret, I don't mean that it was some sort of clandestine secret conspiracy meeting with a plot to take over the world. More like secret in that these group of scientists just didn't tell anyone what they were doing because it was kind of taboo to sit around and talk about how you're going to find evidence of alien life in 1961, and to some extent it still is. But this group of scientists included many people that are famous today, such as Carl Sagan, Frank Drake, and John Lilly. Now some of these people are actually relevant to the story. John Lilly, for example, believed that if you could communicate with other intelligent species on Earth, then you could unlock the key to communication with intelligent species elsewhere in the universe. And some of his experiments involved trying to communicate directly with other intelligent species here on Earth, like dolphins. And that's where the name Order of the Dolphin came from, was related to John Lilly's experiments. And many of the core members of this group would later go on to be founding members of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. But perhaps the most important member of this group as it relates to our story is Frank Drake. Now it was at this first meeting of the Order of the Dolphin that Drake would propose what's now famously known as the Drake equation. The Drake equation is a pretty basic formula actually to determine the number of civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy whose electromagnetic emissions are detectable. And the components of this formula include the rate of formation of stars suitable for the development of intelligent life, the fraction of those stars with planetary systems, the number of planets per solar system with an environment suitable for life, the fraction of suitable planets on which life actually appears, the fraction of life-bearing civilizations on which intelligent life emerges, the fraction of intelligent civilizations that develop a technology that produces detectable signs of their existence, and the average length of time such civilizations produce such signs. Now, it was believed by the scientists of the Order of the Dolphin that the easiest way to detect intelligent civilizations with the technology that they had available at the time was by detecting their electromagnetic emissions. And this is important because Frank Drake, a few years later in 1966, would go on to become the director of the Arecibo Observatory. Now, the thing that was unique about the Arecibo Observatory is that it had this massive radio antenna, essentially a giant satellite dish that was tuned to detect radio electromagnetic emissions from elsewhere in the galaxy. But it wasn't until 1974 that Drake designed what's known as the Arecibo Message. Now the Arecibo Message was this encoded radio signal. Now the total broadcast was only about 3 minutes and it was only sent into space one time. And that message, if decoded, basically represent this graphic that's shown here. And this message was encoded to show a few things, namely the Arecibo telescope, our solar system, DNA, a stick figure of a human, and some of the biochemicals of earthly life like carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Now Drake, who was actually a professor at Cornell University at the time, gave this decoded message to other scientists, and none of them could decode the entire message. Let's listen to the signal and see if we can figure out why. Yeah, checks out. Kinda seems like sending a Sudoku puzzle out into the middle of space and hoping some alien manages to decipher it without knowing the rules to Sudoku. But anyway, as I said, this message was beamed to a very specific cluster of stars and only one time. And that cluster of stars was Messier 13, M13, otherwise known as the Hercules Globular Cluster, with the idea that maybe there would be some intelligent life somewhere in this cluster and they might pick up the signal. But there are some difficulties with this theory, and even the scientists that sent the message at the time admitted that there was a very low chance that anybody was actually going to pick it up. And a couple of those main challenges are namely that the Hercules Globular Cluster is about 21,000 light years away, and considering that radio waves are on the electromagnetic spectrum and therefore travel at the speed of light, if it's 21,000 miles away and the signal was sent about 50 years ago, then we have roughly, 20,950 years before we can ever expect anybody to actually pick up that signal. On top of that, the scientists that sent the signal acknowledged that whoever was on the receiving end would have to have a radio antenna similar in size to the Arecibo Observatory. But despite all these apparent challenges, in 2001, we got what might have been a response to the Arecibo signal. But in order to explain that, I have to go into the phenomenon of crop circles. Now, I won't spend a lot of time describing what crop circles are because most of you probably already know, but a couple of guys came forward and claimed to have started the phenomenon off in 1976 in Wiltshire, England. Now, there's a lot of dispute in the crop circle community because even though a lot of people that claim to be experts in this field will acknowledge that a lot of these are hoaxes, they also still hold to the idea that some of these are evidence of alien interactions. But nevertheless, since 1976, crop circles have popped up all over the planet, with some of them readily being acknowledged as hoaxes and some of them even used as marketing campaigns. Now, all that being said, this brings us up to the events of 2001, where a couple of crop circles appeared near Chilbolton Observatory in Wiltshire, England. Now, the thing that was unique about these crop circles is they didn't appear to have the same kind of fractal patterns that most crop circles have. One of the crop circles in particular appeared to be a message that resembled the Arecibo Message, with just a few key characteristics changed. For example, some of those elements that were encoded in the original message did not include silicon. It included carbon and some of the other elements unique to life here on Earth. But this new message that showed up in this crop circle replaced carbon with silicon, indicating that life elsewhere in the universe had a silicon base rather than carbon base. It also replaced the human figure in the original message with a kind of gray alien, what we would typically assume to be a gray alien in this new message. Now, there's a couple of obvious concerns with this new message that appeared in these crop circles. For example, why didn't they just send a radio message back to us instead of flying all the way here and leaving a message in a field? And the placement of the crop was also rather unique. Now, there's a very important part of this story that we can't just gloss over if we're going to give the full picture of what happened. According to this article in the BBC, an average of 30 crop circles appear each year in the UK, but around 80% of them all occur in the same county of Wiltshire. Now, I looked up Wiltshire on the map, and the interesting thing is this county also includes Stonehenge. Now, just out of curiosity, let's look up Chilbolton and see where it is in relation to Wiltshire and Stonehenge. Well, consider myself buggered. Chilbolton Observatory is just right down the street from Stonehenge in Wiltshire, UK. Where did that British guy with that really muddled accent come from? Anyway, the point is, Chilbolton Observatory, where these crop circles were just outside of, also happens to be in the county of the UK, where 80% of the crop circles appear. Now, a lot of people in the crop circle community like to say, well, yeah, that's a hot spot for alien activity because of Stonehenge, but in my opinion, the far more likely observation is that just a lot of people in this area like doing crop circles for fun. And the other interesting thing is, Wiltshire's not just known for Stonehenge and crop circles. This Churchill white horse is the second oldest of Wiltshire's iconic horse figures, and it's also in Wiltshire. So while I was researching this video, I also stumbled across this video of the Ancient Aliens guy trying to recreate a crop circle. And essentially, he took a couple of guys out in the field and he was able to recreate this crop circle almost perfectly with just 3 guys and a couple of boards and some rope. And while I hardly hold up that Ancient Aliens guy as any kind of like impeccable resource when it comes to aliens, the fact that they were able to recreate a crop circle so effortlessly and quickly is kind of evidence in and of itself that this is most likely a hoax. And whenever I cover these stories, I always try to do my best to cover both sides of the story. However, I also think it's important to not underestimate the extent to which a lot of people really just enjoy messing with other people. And in order to clarify that point, I want to show you a clip from David Fravor's interview on the Joe Rogan Experience.
So we would go out at night flying around on goggles and you'd see a campfire and you go, oh, UFO time. And then you get the airplane going about 600 knots and then you pull the power back to idle so you can't hear it. And you get zinging towards the fire. Well, you turn the lights are all down because we're in restricted areas, so we can do that. And there's lights on it that you can only see if you're on night vision goggles. So the other airplanes can see us, but no one else can see us. Then you go zinging at it. And then right when you get to the campfire, you pull the airplane into the vertical, you stroke the afterburners, you let them light off, you count to 3, you pull them off, and then you just go away. Instant UFO reporting. I'm sitting out in the desert, it's all quiet, and then all of a sudden there's a lure, there's lights in the sky, and they go away and it's gone.
The campfire's
so
out.
You would do that just to fuck with campers?
Yes.
How rude.
Yes. Yes, I did. I'm not the only one that did it, but like I said, we have a sick sense of humor.
Yes, I'm sure.
So some things are explainable because I guarantee there were phone calls made on some of the stuff that we did.
And I guarantee you're not the only one who's ever done that.
Oh, I know I'm not.
Now, I'm not showing you that clip to try to undermine David Fravor's credibility in any way, but merely to illustrate this following point. If even someone as respectable as David Fravor in his pilot experience got a kick out of messing with people and recreating some of his own UFO experiences, then we have to acknowledge that at least some portion of these, maybe even a large portion of the experiences related to aliens, UFOs, crop circles, are likely just people getting a kick out of messing with other people. However, just to wrap things up, I will also say that in the last 23 years since this incident took place, no one has come forward and taken credit for this crop circle. So even though in my opinion the likelihood that it's not people is a very small one, until someone comes forward and takes credit for it, it's always a possibility. And that's all I have for you guys. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so. Turn that notification bell on so you get notified when I post new videos, and I will catch you guys on the next one.